What's up, everyone? I'm back with another vid, and this time around, we're going to look at the zero running back strategy. Now, this has been a strategy that's been gaining momentum the last several years, and to some degree, deservedly so. Um, so, with that being said, what I'm going to do is look over this draft strategy, give you guys my opinion on it, when it should be used, how it should be used, and then go over a sample roster that I put together and evaluate it. So, for those of you that aren't aware, this strategy is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You know, don't target running backs early on. Um, Actually, forego them for the pass catchers. And I think the reason that this is becoming a more valid strategy is because in our league today, you're seeing how much more of a passing league it's becoming. So naturally, there's going to be more of an importance on the pass catchers themselves. And let me just put a disclaimer out there. I think personally, there is something to be said about the strategy, but I think all the conversation around it belongs in PPR leagues because these are the leagues that are going to put even more importance on your pass catchers and give them those extra points for every single reception. On the flip side, though, if you try and apply the strategy in standard leagues, I think it's a little bit harder to justify because everyone there is in a much more even playing field. So I would be hard pressed to take, especially early on, a stud wide receiver over a stud running back. Um, in the long run, in standard league especially, that might do you a disservice when it comes to your overall roster. So, with that little spiel out of the way, however, let's get right into uh, when you should start employing the strategy. Now, for me, this conversation starts and ends with where in the draft are you selecting? Because that's the first variable that you want to know, and it's not one that you can really control. So, let me kind of elaborate on this. If you're picking first overall, I would caution you to think twice about the zero running back strategy because, especially this year, that first overall selection is going to be between Bell and David Johnson. And these guys are not only excellent runners, but they're also excellent pass catchers. So you get that double whammy with those guys, and in a good way. But on the flip side, if you went with the receiver in that first pick overall, I believe you're kind of overvaluing that player. So not only are you picking a guy way too early, but in the long run, you can set up your opponents to have a better draft, which obviously you don't want to do if you're trying to win the league. So, with that being said, I think the perfect spot to employ this strategy would be in the middle part of the first round. So if you have that sixth, seventh overall pick, that's a good location to start making a run at the zero running back strategy. And I would say again, just a little disclaimer, I personally like to take every pick one by one and not 100% commit to a zero running back strategy because that does take a certain amount of commitment because in the first 3 or 4 rounds you're going pass catcher, pass catcher, pass catcher, and there will be uh, an uneven level of play between your receivers and your running backs. So just keep that in mind. Your receivers are going to have to carry your fantasy football team. And with that in mind, I would say the reason I like the middle uh, part of the draft to pick my guys because you can still get your tier one receiver there. You can get Antonio Brown. You can get Julio Jones. You can get a guy like Odell. Um, but at the same time, you don't know how the draft is going to play out. You don't know who's going to get picked ahead of you, who's going to get picked after you. So just keep in mind on that. Be open to being able to adjust throughout the draft. That would be my one word of caution. So let's get into this roster that I was able to put together, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on it, how it played out, and the value that I was able to get on some of these guys. So in my roster, I was able to secure the seventh overall pick in the draft, which I was very happy with. Um, and, I didn't exactly know what to expect. I thought I'd be lucky if I landed one of those top three receivers that I mentioned in Julio, Antonio, and Odell. And luckily enough, that's exactly what happened. At seven overall, I feel like I got pretty lucky and I landed Odell. Now, in most circumstances, I wouldn't think that Odell would still be available at seven. I would think he would be in the top six range. But like I said before, you don't know how a draft is going to unfold. And maybe the reason that he was still available is because it was a mock draft and not necessarily will he be there in your live drafts. But I think when it's all said and done, when I show you guys how this roster turned out, it's going to be on the upper tier of how you could hope a zero running back strategy roster turns out. And just keep in mind that they're not all going to turn out like this. This, in my opinion, is on the upper level of them. So with my first pick, Odell Beckham, I'm immediately very happy. And to be honest with you, at this point, I still didn't know whether I would do the zero running back strategy, but it's something that kind of just naturally happened. And that's my favorite way of building a roster when it naturally comes. So first overall, I've got Odell in my book, going to be a top three receiver this season again. Then, and it comes back my way. Um, some of the running backs that I really like Gordon, Devonta Freeman, they're gone. So I didn't want to reach on another running back like Lamar Miller. So I decided, all right, let's look at the receivers again and see who's available. Surprisingly, the guy Michael Thomas in New Orleans was still available, and I'm a fan of him. He had a pretty good rookie year, the top rookie in his class, and now with Brendan Cooks gone and still being in that New Orleans offense, playing with Breeze and putting up all those points, you would think that he's going to have just as good of a year, if not better. So I went right ahead and picked Michael Thomas. So right off the bat, my two guys are a tier one guy in Odell and a guy in Michael Thomas that a lot of people would happily take as their number one receiver. So as far as I'm concerned, I have two number one receivers, and I'm very happy with how everything is unfolding. Fast forward to the third round. Uh, I was deliberating whether I should pick again, whether I should start building that running back position or keep going with my pass catchers. And I had a choice between uh, DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, and then some running backs that I wasn't that high on. So again, I made the decision. Let's go receiver again. Let's hit it. And I know that for a fact I'm gonna have the best group of pass catchers in my league, no doubt. So with that, I added Keenan Allen, and this is a guy that he's been an excellent PPR option when healthy. 2 years ago, he was killing it, and I think hopefully he'll bounce back from those injuries. The rookie that the Chargers drafted got hurt, so Allen will become just as big of a offensive weapon as he was before, hopefully. And I added him to that flex spot without even thinking about it. So right off the bat, I've got three pass catchers, three receivers that I all envision to finish in the top 15, and I'm stoked about that. But at the same time, this is where you notice, okay, my running back slots are still empty, and all those star names are starting to go. And, this is where a little bit of panic can set in. Uh, but at this point, you've committed to this and you got to play it out and start at this point. The third round to me is that point in the draft where it's very pivotal. And at this point, you can either continue with another receiver and still continue the zero running back strategy, or you can pull back and finally start stockpiling running backs. And that's what usually happens. If you've noticed, if you look at a team that's employing the zero running back strategy, they'll go receiver heavy, and then they'll start taking running backs like crazy. So that's the thing about it. you realize that it's a point of weakness, your running back position, and you're going to start stockpiling on guys. Um, so, looking at my fourth round selection, you would think that that's what I did, but I had a choice between a guy in Christian McCaffrey, who's a rookie, who's going to be splitting carries with Stewart and Newton, and a guy that I really like in Travis Kelsey. So I thought, hey, let's go for broke and add another elite pass catcher to the team. Kelsey is going to be a stud in Kansas City. Macklin is gone. He'll get more targets. And I now for a fact know that there is nobody in this league that can contend with the four pass catchers that I've put together in the first rounds. And this is going to be the strength of my team week in and week out. And these are going to be the guys that I rely on. So now going to the fifth and sixth round, this is where the panic sets in a little bit. And I say to myself, all right, you got to go with the running backs and you got to hit them hard. And luckily, in my opinion, I had a guy in the fifth round that was still available that I really like in the PPR leagues, and that's Ty Montgomery. He can do it as a running back, but he can also do it as a receiver. So you get a little bit of an added bonus. I thought that was very good value for Ty. Um, and again, that might be because this was a mock draft after all, and he wouldn't be available otherwise. But still, I took him nonetheless. And then fast forward to the sixth round, again, another great value guy that I really liked in the sixth round, and that was Joe Mixon. Uh, I haven't seen him last usually that long, but again, I took advantage of the situation, and I think I kind of bounced back pretty well from those two selections of ignoring the running back position because Mixon's a rookie, but coming out of college, he was an excellent runner and an excellent pass catcher. It was all those off the field issues. Uh, and then in the seventh round, just for insurance, I added a guy, Mike Gillisley, that's going to be in New England this year, who uh, can maybe cover for Mixon until Mixon overtakes the guys in Cincinnati's backfield, that being Hill and Giovanni Bernard. So there you go. My first 7 picks, 4 pass catchers, and then immediately 3 running backs. Now, just to kind of finish off the roster, I took a quarterback, and that was Jameis Winston. As far as evaluating this roster, I would say I'll run it down again. Quarterback, Jameis Winston. Running backs, Ty. Then you've got Joe Mixon. Receivers, Odell. Michael Thomas. Keenan Allen. Travis Kelsey. And then on the bench, I have Mike Gillisley. I'm stoked. I'm happy. And I would give this draft personally, an A plus. Obviously, you can't predict injuries, things like that. But I was very happy with how the draft turned out. Let me know what you guys think. Did I play my cards right? Were there guys that you would have picked that maybe I ignored, or whether you would have taken the zero running back strategy even further? I don't know. Maybe you guys are big believers in it, but let me know how you would grade the draft. Again, like, subscribe, comment, and look out for future vids where I'm going to go into other draft strategies that I personally use, and hopefully that can be beneficial for you guys too.